My name is Tristan Warren, and today I'll be talking about the lack of pollination sources in urban areas and its influence on the health and population of bee colonies. Why pollination is so important to bees and to our society. Of the 1,400 crop plants grown around the world, almost 80% of those require pollination. More than half of the world's diets of fats and oils come from animal pollinated plants. More than 150 types of crops in the US rely on pollinators. Flowering plants produce oxygen absorbed by carbon dioxide. Flowering plants also help purify water and prevent erosion. And there's also cultural importance of pollination, such as cultural symbolism, food plants, medicinal plants, and plant-based dyes. All of these points would not be possible without honeybees and their pollination abilities. The question I'm going to be asking is, how does the lack of diverse pollination sources in urban environments influence the health and population stability of honeybee colonies? Lack of diverse pollination sources in urban areas. There are several reasons as to how urbanization is reducing the bee population. The first reason is intensive agriculture. This destroys honeybee hives, which then leads to bees fighting for space, which then leads to dying bees. Another reason is pesticide use. This quote was said by someone in my references. It says, "People spray pesticides on hives or burn them. They think destroying it is the end of the issue, but losing bees is actually the beginning of it." And the third reason is climate change. Glass buildings and concrete roads in urban areas increase heat, and bees cannot handle heat beyond a certain point. Here's a graph of Texas, the coast of Texas, and you can see all of the red on the top graph shows all the urban and city areas. And bees can't thrive as well here as they can in the areas where there are orange and green colors on the graph. And those represent trees, grass, crops, places where bees can really thrive. Urbanization effect on bee health. York PhD student Catherine D. Chow had this to say about bee health. Parasite and pathogen infections in bees are a major driver in global bee population declines, and this is further exacerbated by urbanization and a loss of habitat and degraded habitat. The higher number of infections in urban areas can also be due to disease spillover. This occurs whenever diseased bees pollinate a flower and then another bee goes to the same flower. This is caused by urbanization due to the fact that bees have to be concentrated in certain areas. In urban areas, bees are more susceptible to disease transmission, particularly diseases such as the black queen cell virus and fungal pathogen N. serinae. Here is a circular graph of CCD, also known as colony collapse disorder. And colony collapse disorder in honeybees is caused by a combination of factors that weaken their health and survival. Genetically modified crops and a monofloral diet reduce nutritional diversity, leading to poor nutrition and decreased bee immunity. This makes bees more vulnerable to pathogens, parasites, and viruses, increasing mortality. Pesticide exposure further reduces bee survival and contributes directly to CCD. Together, these interconnected issues create a harmful cycle that leads to the collapse of bee colonies. Urbanization effect on bee foraging. Urban areas create a heat island effect, which means that the temperature is higher there than surrounding rural areas, and this affects flowering times and growing season length. This leads to flowers blooming either before or after bees are out foraging. Urbanization has affected honeybee abundance, richness, and diversity. However, diversity does not matter for this project due to the fact that we're only analyzing honeybees. However, it is in the graph on the next page. Above are two graphs. The first one represents how much warmer urban areas are than rural areas. As you can see, The rural areas are 34 degrees Celsius, while the urban areas are 38 degrees Celsius. So this is about a 4 degrees Celsius difference. The second graph represents bee abundance, richness, and diversity across rural, urban, and suburban areas. As you can see, the rural areas have higher abundance, richness, and diversity in all three of them. However, the urban areas are lacking in all of the graphs, as well as the suburban areas. Increased population instability of honeybees and its likely effects. As stated before, increased honeybee population instability can be caused by many things, but what are the likely effects? Some of the effects are listed below. Less frequent flower visitation, abrupt or gradual decrease of seed and fruit production. Beekeeping sector in danger in several areas in Europe. Self-compatible flower plants can suffer from inbreeding. And pistil senescence, which is a natural process in flowering plants that occurs after the flower has been pollinated or even without pollination. Here's my conclusion. In conclusion, urbanization has several negative effects on a honeybee's health and their overall population. Some of the negative effects are listed below. The higher number of infections in urban areas can also be due to disease spillover. In urban areas, bees are more susceptible to disease transmission, particularly diseases such as the black queen cell virus and fungal pathogen Anserinae. Urban areas create a heat island effect, and this affects flowering times and growing season length. Urbanization has affected honeybee abundance, richness, and diversity in a negative way. Less frequent flower visitation, abrupt or gradual decrease of seed and fruit production. Beekeeping sector in danger in several areas in Europe. Self-compatible flower plants can suffer from inbreeding, and pistil senescence, which I covered in the last slide. Significance. Honeybees play a crucial role in pollinating many of the fruits, vegetables, and nuts that make up a significant portion of our everyday diets. Their pollination supports biodiversity and is essential to the health of ecosystems and agricultural productivity. To help protect honeybees, we should plant native flowers, reduce pesticide use, and support local beekeepers to ensure their survival and the stability of our food systems. We should also stop killing them anytime we see them because they help us more than they hurt us. And here are some of my references right here. And then